Roland March.
You probably say, come on, give me a break. Move on, guys.
Back in Washington, D.C., I know you were rolling this weekend, Roland.
Yep, I was in Pittsburgh Friday morning, State of Black Learning. I had a great time there. Their goal, love, liberation, and freedom for black boys and girls to learn. And then, of course, hopped on a plane with the Cincinnati for the Men of Courage, Men of Change, Ford Cares event there. And they're taking this all across the country. Plus, there's a Smithsonian exhibit tied to it. And so it was at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. And so great time in Cincinnati. And back at the crib, also shout out to J.J. Smith, the author of the Green Smoothies. Had our 50th birthday party in D.C. on Saturday. So shout out J.J. And this weekend, I got to chill at the crib, and I watched this Netflix docuseries, Tom, called The Family.
Yeah.
Now, Sybil, I don't know if you've seen this, but what it details essentially is this 80-plus year group that is invisible, that is all about courting world leaders, including U.S. leaders, focus on the teachings of Jesus, but really it's about power and control. And they have no greater person they control right now than Donald Trump in the White House. It is a scary, scary docuseries because you understand these white conservative evangelicals and how they want to use the teachings of Jesus to infiltrate power. Joining us right now is Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, repairs of the breach, Poor People's Campaign, NAACP. Reverend Barber, you hit me up and said, Roland, you got to watch this. This guy, Doug Cole, who ran it for years, died a couple of years ago. And it really is, like I said, it's scary to watch this because his whole deal was it's about being invisible, not being known.
Exactly, Roland. And really, it's the modern-day expression of the magicians of Pharaoh or the court chaplains of Pharaoh, or those who supported slavery, or those who were undergirded segregation. And, you know, when you look at this the brother, the guy that wrote this, and I say brother in the sense of a human family, he was in it. He was inside. And he came out and he said, wait a minute. These folk are claiming that they care about the poor, they care about the least of these, they're following Jesus, but what they really have is a fetish for power. Mm-hmm. They also go all over the world, and including the United States, and try to undo labor movements and movements that help people move up in terms of resources and money, and they support the kind of economics that empower the 1% and push down, if you will, the 99%.
In fact, this thing started in Seattle.
Way.
It started in Seattle.
Exactly right.
19 white business leaders came together to crush labor unions. That's how it started.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And because in 1935, you remember that was also around the time that Roosevelt was putting in place the New Deal. And there was this big movement to try to stop labor unions, stop minimum wage, stop any form of the government helping people out of poverty and helping people come up out of the Great Depression, because they actually believed the Great Depression was just the normal way of survival of the fittest. That's how you work in a society as far as they're concerned, as long as the wealthy are protected. And that's why you have to have a moral counter to this. This stuff is as old as the Bible. It is as old as slave master religion that Frederick Douglass pushed against. It's as old as the religionists that stood against Dr. King and movements of the 60s, and it's still here, Roland. And that's why we have to have movements that challenge it. I tell black parishioners particularly, we can't just be in church giving God praise and saying hallelujah, but there's a whole other group of folk that while you're doing that, they are trying to take your labor rights, take your money, undercut your ability to have living wages and health care. And Roland, did you see the part in there where they used this false heretical notion of instant forgiveness to absolve powerful people of their misdeeds so that they don't have to pay the consequences of what they've done?
Wow. And in fact, where we are now, Sybil, is that this control of the federal courts. Mm-hmm. Many of these folks are still angry with the civil rights movement, the Black Freedom Movement, and Brown versus Board of Education. And like, for instance, there's a guy named Stephen Menashe, who Trump has appointed to the Second Circuit Court. This guy wrote a piece called Ethno-Nationalism and Liberal Democracy, arguing essentially we should remain a white nation. They want to put this kind of guy on the federal court for life. And what Trump has done essentially is said to these white conservative evangelicals, look, y'all, whoever y'all want for the courts, y'all pick anybody y'all want to. And that's what we're seeing, Reverend Barber, because they want to control, because these people, they're appointing 35 and 40 years old who are going to be there the next 40, 50 years.
That's right. And Roland, here's the trick they use, particularly among African Americans. We have to be careful of this. They come in and say, we're against abortion and we're against gay people. And you get some people, that's the right thing to do in the Bible, which is actually wrong. That's another conversation. What they really don't teach people is that they rose to power in many ways to be against the civil rights movement, against integration. And here's the other piece. They are appointing judges, if you look at the record, who may be against abortion, but what they really are doing is they're giving more power to corporations.
Yep.
They're giving more power to corporations and taking more power from the people. In other words, they're treating corporations like people and people like things.
Reverend Barber.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was on a plane with a man just days before the 2016 election, and he was a Mormon, and he was in favor of Donald Trump. And I remember, and we were having a discussion, and I said, but a man who has done all of these things and admits to it, how is it that your religious convictions allow you to support someone like that? And he said just what you're saying. He said he has been forgiven. And he said, the real core of this,
by these evangelicals,
and he said the real core of this is who he is going to support and nominate for the courts.
There you go.
Right. And Tom, it's Trump evangelicals. Don't call them evangelicals. That's the other thing.
That's a different
come up
story.
with these names. See, I'm an evangelical, but they say the courts, but even beyond just the abortion issue. What's deeper is the things they will do to block civil rights legislation and the things they will do to empower the economics of the banking and the greedy and the wealthy. That's what we got to start looking at.
And that's why Reverend Barber's on this 22-state tour with the Poor People's Campaign leading up to a Moral March on Washington on June 20th, 2020. Folks, please go to www.breachrepairs.org, breachrepairs.org. It's mobilizing poor people and people of faith to combat what's happening. A mass Poor People's Assembly and Moral March in Washington taking place Saturday, June 20th, 2020. Reverend Barber, thanks for your hard work.
Thank you so much. Tom Sybil, have a good one.
Okay.
God bless you, sir.
Okay.
The great
It's
work.
it's a deep documentary, Tom.
One part?
No, it's 4 parts.
Four parts
I gotta check
on
that out.
Netflix. The family.
Netflix is no